Good morning and welcome to worship at Peace Lutheran Church in Lauderdale, Minnesota. And it's good to come to you today. It's the fourth Sunday of Epiphany, and it's also our annual meeting, which will weave into the service. And we'll have some readings, we'll have some music, and we'll have some reflections from you guys. So that'll be nice. But one of the things I'd like to start with is talking about the clay cylinders that I've thrown. And it takes a lot of energy to throw, 30 pounds of clay, which is what one of these is. And so I threw them ahead of time, and you can't really form them. You can't really do much of forming something like this until they have a little time to mature. And then they can be shaped. If you do it ahead of time, the risk is it's just going to collapse. And you can always recycle the clay, and you can start over again. That's always an option. But if you're trying to pay attention to what you're doing, so each one of these clay cylinders, just like the Bible texts say, and just like any potter, clay is us. We are clay, and we will go back to clay eventually. And so it's a great metaphor for a spiritual life, for a physical life. Connection to the earth. So out of the earth we come, and we have a short time that we get to dance around and spin off a few other little pots, and then our time is done. And it's much faster than you ever imagined. Everybody that's older would say that it goes faster and faster all the time. The more fun you're having, the quicker it goes. And so you have to be patient, and you have to stand up, and then take time to stretch, and that's what our texts are about today. So I'm going to start with just that illustration, and I'm going to turn it over to Vicki now, who's going to start us off with a piano prelude. So go ahead, Vicki. I think you have to unmute yourself, Vicki.
Sorry about that. My technician wasn't on the ball.
Thank you. Our first text today is generally the text that you hear at weddings. It's rare for us to get this. The community at Corinth is not getting along. Some people think they're better than the others, and Paul is writing a letter to them to kind of straighten them out in terms of what they should be focusing on, what's important. And it's a little bit of a shock, these words, but we've taken them in as almost like Hallmark cards now, so we don't really appreciate them for what they really are. But 1 Corinthians 13, 1-13. If I speak in tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest is love. Okay. The Holy Gospel according to Luke, the 4th chapter, and all the people said, "Glory to you, O Lord." In the synagogue at Nazareth, Jesus read from the book of the prophet Isaiah. So he's back in his hometown, part 2 of last week. And so he reads from the book of Isaiah and begin to say, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." Now all spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his mouth. They said, "Wow, is this not Joseph's son?" And he said to them, "Doubtless you will quote to me this proverb, 'Doctor, cure yourself.' And you will say, 'Do here also in your hometown the things that we have heard you did in Capernaum.'" And he said, "Truly I tell you, no prophet is accepted in the prophet's hometown. But the truth is, there were many widows in Israel at the time of Elijah, when the heaven was shut up 3 years and 6 months, and there was a severe famine over all the land. Yet Elijah was sent to none of them, except to a widow at Zarephath in Sidon. There were also many lepers in Israel in the time of the prophet Elisha, and none of them was cleansed except Naaman the Syrian." When they heard this, all in the synagogue were filled with rage. They got up, drove him out of town, and led him to the brow of the hill on which their town was built, so that they might hurl him off the cliff. But he passed through the midst of them and went on his way. The gospel of the Lord. And all the people said, "Praise to you, O Christ." All right. I'm going to begin sitting right here, and then I'm going to have to shift my computer around a little bit and get the camera going since I don't have technicians. I usually have a whole crew of you, but with the pandemic the way it is, that we're still separated, and I think that may be ending sometime soon, I hope. But for now, I'll be here. But grace to you all and peace from our Lord and Savior, Jesus, the risen Christ. Amen. What a turn. You know, Jesus is coming back to his hometown, and everybody's just amazed at him. And they, you know, it's not, you want to have the, you know, the hometown kid come back and make good, and everybody's proud of him. And especially when he's been doing so many amazing things that they're hearing about all over the countryside, amazing feats and wonders of healing. So he makes it back there, and he's so wise in what he's saying. And he gets back, and he comes back to his northern home, and which is a trade route from east to west. It's filled with Greeks. It's filled with Romans. It's filled with people from the east, Samaritans. It's got everything. You know, it's not the center of the Jewish universe. It's in the backwaters. It's not Minneapolis, it's Lauderdale. And not even today, it's Lauderdale back in the 20s. So there he is up at the synagogue, and he's talking about he's taking on this mantle of he's being ordained, and he's saying yes to the Spirit that came to him in his baptism, and they're excited. He's gonna save. He's saved the best for them, and instead he quotes to them, the stories of Elijah and Elisha, where the only people that were cured by them in certain times were foreigners. And Naaman, the warrior, was an enemy warrior who was responsible for the deaths of plenty of Jews. And here he's lifting up the saving of Naaman. Outsiders, foreigners, immigrants, enemies, and they're incensed by the whole thing, which kind of makes sense. And they're so enraged by this that they want to throw him off the hill. And whatever everybody knows about the geographic area, if there's a hill in Nazareth, if they threw him off of it, he might sprain his knee. So it's really expressing how angry they are in story form, but he does go off in the midst of them and goes away. So why is he doing this? Why is he? And he doesn't just do it here. He does it all the time. It isn't just a story of Jesus healed all these people. They had a potluck and they gave an award banquet, and on his behalf, it gave him an award. So much so that he had to have a cart pulling all of his awards around all of the Jewish lands because of all the thank yous. It was always coupled with some kind of a challenge. I mean, they were always being pushed. And what I know about myself and others is we don't like to be pushed. We don't like to be woken up, especially if we're nice and drowsy. But Jesus is interested in waking us up spiritually, socially, economically. I mean, you name it. So that it's part of the reason why I always say that, if I had a chance to see Jesus, I'd wanna have dinner at a table next to Jesus talking to you, close enough that I could hear. But I wouldn't be on the hot seat. Because he's challenging. He's not just a comforting character. So I'm going to switch over here. There we go. I think that is just right. So as I said, can you hear me from this distance? Does that work? How about can you hear me if this thing is turning? Can you hear me? You still can hear me? All right. Okay. So as I said before, we live our lives. It's kind of like we grow up, and some of us get tall. We grow up, and what Jesus is wanting to do is to challenge us in so many ways to shape us. And to shape us, we need to be stretched. And Jesus comes into the lives of all the people in these stories and stretches them. 9 were healed and only 1 came back to give thanks. Jesus, why can't you just let it go? Why don't you just let everybody be nice and just be quiet? But you're always stretching people, So what he does, and there's a risk in being stretched. But if you're not ready for it, and if you're not looking for it, it comes out of nowhere. Like Jesus is stretching them to say, pay attention to the outsider. Pay attention to the foreigner. Pay attention to women. I mean, he grew up in that synagogue. He knows what it's like. It would be like, Jesus coming into Peace Lutheran Church in Lauderdale. And and we show Jesus everything that we've been doing for the neighbors and everybody. And he looks at the screen and he says, where are the people of color? Where are they? And then he waits for a response. And we come up with all kinds of reasons, but he won't have any of it. He wants to push. And he just keeps stretching us. And trust me, if you were stretched this much in your body right now, you would not be happy. And I'm not saying growing, because I grow. 40 pounds heavier now than when I got married, so it's Karen's fault. We don't like to be stretched. We don't like to be stretched, especially if we like the way we are now. We like this shape. And I finally started to turn right. I know how to do this. I know how to live this life. I know how to have these friends. But then Jesus throws in another one. What about this? So he just keeps stretching us and stretching us. It's not a bad thing. It's a hard thing. The one thing I know about being stretched as a pot is the more you're stretched, the shorter you get. You're not as big and tall and powerful looking as you were before. You're actually coming down to the ground. You get lower and lower the more you get stretched. So if your goal in life is to be the biggest and the best and be on the top rung and be taller than everybody, looking over everybody's head, when you get stretched, just the opposite occurs. The other thing that happens when you get stretched and you get closer to the ground is you can carry more. The volume is getting bigger. There's more room for everything. There's more room for dinner guests. There's more room for baking Pastor Dave some gluten-free cookies. There's more room to check on your neighbors to see how they're doing. And there's a risk. The more you get stretched, the better your chances of falling and collapsing. But Jesus wants to shape us, into characters and people, a holy community that cares for each other and asks first, how are the neighbors? How can I be a neighbor? How can I be welcoming? What's the best thing I can do for others? And when somebody criticizes me, I can take it. Okay, there might be some truth there. Yeah, no, we have people of color. We've got Roland. Jesus, come with me to Lingbloomston. We'll show you Roland. He's dark-skinned. Oh, and so are his boys. And they're amazing people. And they're amazing because of Kathleen there. I'd like to say it was Roland, but Roland just got in the way.
In spite of.
in spite of. So the stretching comes in spite of or because. But no, they've got rolling in them too. I need to take the criticism. We all need to take the criticism. Why do we live in a world where we're segregated? It's not that churches on purpose do this. We're just a reflection of the societies that we live in and the friends we have, which is saying a lot. We've got work to do. So let's stretch. Stretch. So you'll see that they both started out pretty similar. So now can you see why all the people in Jesus' synagogue were so mad at him? If this is who you are, and you're proud to have your famous, kid made good coming back, and he does this to you? But this is what you want to be? Eventually we grow into it. I think we have, or we deny it, and we don't. But it's where we're called to be stretched, and our capacity is so big. And I need to say this. God doesn't love us any more like this than like that. It's not connected to love or acceptance. It's just that God desires so much more for us than just stopping here. Sure looks impressive, and it is very impressive. But Jesus sees who we could be and keeps pushing. And that's what relationship is about. So, as we sit together today, it's having our annual meeting, and I wanted to kick this off by asking people to unmute as they like, as they would be willing. We've got some questions there. Choose one or two questions from your bulletin that I've mailed out. One is what drew you to peace? What keeps you coming? Especially on Zoom. Why do you come on Zoom? Carolyn, my gosh, you've never even spent any time practically in this building or location. What would bring you or your daughter Marnie to this place? Or Paul Lacey, who bless his soul, who's died. Why would you do this? So that would be another question. What keeps you coming back? And what are your memories? Where have you seen God at work at peace this year? And oftentimes we have slideshows of all the things we've done together, and we don't have those. But if you have one, just think of a question and let's be fair about this. And if it's in good Peace Lutheran community fashion, if you come up with your own questions, you can do that too. So just unmute yourself if you'd like to share, and just say who you are, and then what your response might be. And like we've done on Zoom before, I can wait a long time in silence.
I'm Dennis, and I feel very good about about 40 some years that we've been at peace. But it wasn't the years, but it was the folks that are there, the pastors that have been here, the visiting pastors, the musicians, so much in terms of do we deserve all of this? I think we have been very, very fortunate to have many, many people involved. I know that ages. I'm now one of the aged people, and that's a nice feeling in some ways, but it gets down on me once in a while when I think in terms of there's, at 80, 84, no, 83.
82 till April.
Whatever it is, I have to check with Claudia on a lot of things, and she's a youngster. So anyway, I love you all, and in that I think the sharing of things, the what is it, August,
Christmas in August.
Christmas in August has been just wonderful to be able to be a part of that. So I just have been really blessed.
Well, thanks for blessing us. Anybody else? Sean? Sean, why do you keep coming back, Sean?
Just be with everybody
Yeah.
and all that, and see what's going on and everything.
You look forward to it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like going to church and all that.
Well, before Zoom, you would come to church twice a year if you were.
Yeah, not that much, but just to see everybody and everything.
Well,
And all that.
it's been great to have you. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Hi, David, I'll go.
Hi, Mark.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Well, Dennis mentioned visiting pastors, and my wife has been one of the ones that has come as a visiting pastor occasionally. And there was a time that Ilsa and I needed to find a new home because we were no longer the pastor's husband and pastor's child. And Ilsa was the one that said, I like peace. And so do we all. And so that's what led us that. It's just interesting that we are a family with a pastor at the head of it. And this is where we find home.
Oh, that warms our hearts. Thank you. And we'll get to have Ilsa around here a little bit. That'll be good for us. Thank you. Anyone else?
I can go. Hello, I can go.
Okay. Oh yeah, there you go. Okay.
Am I on?
Oh, yep, you're on.
Okay. Well, Pastor Geist actually moved to Lauderdale several months before my first husband and I did. And so he had married us. And so we started going to church there, not pillars of the church by any means, but we went. And then he asked our son if he wanted to be confirmed. And young Michael said he did. And so he confirmed, and Pastor knows this story, is that on the Sunday that Michael was confirmed, my parents came from West Lafayette, Indiana, and they were so pleased and so proud. And we were talking between the two services about how confirmation is the person's confirmation of their baptismal vows. And Michael's dad and I looked at each other and said, well, Pastor guys, we got to talk because Michael's never been baptized. So, so he was baptized and confirmed on the same day, and my parents were just over the moon. And anyway, so it kind of fell away over the years. But then one Christmas a few years ago, when Michael and I were back, when they were in Switzerland actually, and they came back, and he said, "I want to go to church on Christmas Eve." And I said, "Oh, okay, there's a church, Episcopal church right down the street from us. We could walk over there. And he said, no, I want to go to that church where I was confirmed. So when we came back was on that Christmas Eve. And it was the Christmas Eve that Elsie had just finished her leukemia treatment that has proved so lasting. And so she was excited, and it was just an engaging evening. And after Michael left town, then Bill and I decided to keep coming back.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Anyone else?
Crystal, go ahead. You don't have to wait for him to see you.
No, definitely don't wait for me to see you.
Oh, it's okay. I just wanted to put in a good word for our beef. Originally, it used to be the annual beef dinner, and then it turned into the pasta supper. And our congregation has worked together. People who came to church irregularly, we should say, everybody is willing to jump in and do their part to make this community event. And I don't think people come for the food necessarily, although that's really good, but people come because they want to be part of the community. And people who moved out of the community come back to the pasta suppers and came back to the beef dinners just because it was a way for the community to get together and enjoy each other's company and share news, whatever. So I think Peace has, as well as their activities, worship activities, we've been a positive force for the community.
I agree. That's great. Thank you. Don't wait for me to see you. Jump in. Talk to each other.
Hello. I loved watching Emily and Nicholas grow up. It was so fun to see their transformations. And since Crystal just spoke, those cinnamon rolls were the best. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Paula.
I'm Wendy Gloman. Speaking of Crystal and cinnamon rolls, well, first of all, we found out about Peace because our son-in-law was at seminary, and he came to Peace for
contextual ed
or something or another, and he was going to do a sermon, and we thought, well, we'll go listen to him do a sermon, and we loved it. We just fell in love with the church. And then one of the first experiences was we had this auction where we could auction off our services or things, and Crystal auctioned off learning to make cinnamon rolls. Speaking of cinnamon rolls, and I kept bidding, someone bid against me, we both kept bidding, and then we both decided we both could do it. I can't remember who that was, but Crystal was my first special person, and she was so welcoming. And then I found everybody welcoming, and just Brent and I knew we had a home.
Thank you. Oh, you have to unmute yourself, Crystal.
I have to say, in return, Brent was my first experience with Lefsa. And I remember the Lefsa party I call it a party, but it was really a cooking experience, I guess you could say. And that was fun too.
Lots of baking over the years, that's for sure. Yeah.
I have one.
All right.
First of all, I agree with all the food. Can't go wrong with that piece of food, no matter what it is. But I think that to get to the question, why do I keep coming back to Zoom, is because it's our only food for our hearts right now. We can't see people. So many of us live within blocks of each other, and we never see each other, especially in the winter. So it's just good to know there's other people out there still, and we're not just sitting here and rotting by ourselves. And I think that's really important, and I'm thankful for it.
Mm. Thank you.
I would like to tie in with,
Who are you?
I'm Claudia Gilbertson. I've
Yeah.
been at Peace 44 years. Okay, thank you. Um, I know you don't think I'm that old, so I was very young when we joined. What keeps me coming back is being pushed. I just love your sermon today, David, because that is what I look for in a church. I heard an analogy once from a pastor down here in Florida, in fact, that the plane ride of your church shouldn't always be smooth like we all want plane rides to be, that there should be some rockiness, and that's our job with each other, is to keep pushing. And I like being challenged, and people here challenge me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, I can go on. I'm Kathleen, and I've been here at Peace for about 20 years. As many people have said, it's the people that originally drew me to Peace. At the time, it was just by coincidence, but it was the mother of someone that my son knew that was so warm and welcoming, as was everyone. And, you know, as the wife of the single adult of color in the congregation that has come regularly, and mother of the two other people of color, it's hard to stick out. When you know that you're sticking out like a sore thumb 24/7 pretty much, it's really hard. And it's hard to put yourself out there. Of course, well, never mind. But anyway, the people were so welcoming that it made it very easy to keep coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly some of the people that have passed on. But I remember Helen always came over and greeted us after service, and Virginia Manthony, who just passed away, always came over and greeted us, and just made us feel at home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what drew us to Peace, was the people, and that's pretty much what keeps us coming back, is the warm, welcoming people here at Peace.
Mm. Thank you, Kathleen. Anybody else?
Pastor?
Yeah, hi, Eileen.
Hi. You know, I I got involved with Peace through the Christmas in July or August, whatever you want to call it. And through that, I saw a church that put the words into, or their faith into work. And that I know our grace is not through works, but I really feel that a church that works to help other people is showing God's love.
Mm.
We're following Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Eileen. Anybody else?
I think that for me, I just have found a lot of kindness in everybody at the church. Yeah, I mean, really nothing but kindness. And I think that's what keeps me coming back, is the kindness. Elsie, did you have something?
Peoples.
Anyone in particular?
Peoples.
Elsie had a very early and very special bond with Emily. So Emily and Nick were very big.
Peoples.
And Peoples. Peoples and Emily and Nicholas, I know, for my kids. They're
Peoples.
pretty big deal. Both.
Thank you. Thanks, Elsie. Anna, anybody else?
I just want to say, besides all the people, we have such a good time and we have so much fun together. I think it's nice to worship and have all that love and everything, but it's fun to have fun too. And I remember our what do you call beanbag toss and our talent shows and we've had so many activities that have just been a lot of fun. I have to put that in because it's nice to worship. It's nice to, love each other, which is great. That's the foremost thing, of course, but I got to put in a little plug for having fun too.
Of all the people in the world that would give a plug for fun, it would be Crystal. So I agree. All right. Anybody else before we finish here? Anybody else? Well,
when we first started coming on a regular basis, oh, now Brent got the thing and I lost my train of thought. Just a minute. Anybody else do that?
we're all going to go there someday.
Okay. Oh, I would tell people about the church because I was just so happy there. And one of the main things that I would tell people was the community service. That was really important. And I'd start listing all the things that we were doing. And then I also said, I enjoy sermons.
Mm-hmm.
They motivate us to go out and serve, and they motivate us, or you feel a sense of peace and joy.
Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to add that too.
Let me just throw in another word too about this element of service. It isn't something that we're dragged into. I mean, I can remember with that little building behind Mackerman's, I forget what it's called, but there were concrete blocks to be carried, and there was some people would say, oh, look at all this work. But every time I was involved, nobody had nothing but lots of fun. I mean, it was fun mixing the cement and pulling the things. Now, I didn't do a ton over there, but I was able to participate a few times, and the service was just a joyful giving, and that just really is exciting to be part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wanted to read this today, and I didn't know the right time, but right now talking about service seems like the right time. It's a book about Corrie ten Boom. We Christians are called to bring to a hungry world the bread of life, the message of salvation, love, eternal life, riches immeasurable, and a peace that passes all understanding, God's plenty. But how can the world believe this message if they do not hear it? And how can they hear it if we do not tell them?
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you for that.
Hi.
I just thought I was thinking about this the other day. You realize it was 10 years ago that we started that building in the backyard. 10 years ago. So I think we're due for a pretty major party this summer to celebrate that. We're always looking for an excuse anyway. And it'll be this pandemic thing will all be over with, and we'll be able to party unrestricted by then for sure. I'm quite certain of that. Anyway.
All right. Well, thanks. And Dan Mackerman is our invisible man in the church. So thank you. All right, Mary.
We moved into Lauderdale pretty much 1st of January, 1999. So that's how long we've been here. And we didn't start coming to Peace right away because my mother was living at Ling-Blomston. I grew up in St. Anthony Park, right 3 blocks from here. But we would take my mom to St. Anthony Park Church, which was my old church, or we'd go over to Our Saviors in Minneapolis, where our daughter Catherine is the piano player. And then once in a while we'd come to Peace because we could walk down the block. And after, well, when my mom died, and then we decided too that we were coming to Peace more and more, and that this was really important to us, just to be able to walk to the church, to be right there and see the people on the way that were living around us and inviting them to come. And also I like very much that the pastor there, Pastor Dave, regarded Lauderdale as his church, not just this little Peace Lutheran in the corner. That he would, if he saw anybody fixing their car or somebody's toilet needed fixing or roof needed fixing or something, it's part of his parish, kind of like the old idea of parish being just your geographical area. Mm-hmm. And I like that very much. Mm-hmm. And the idea that the pastor doesn't just sit in his study and counsel people and preach and so on, but out working for whatever anybody needs that he can do, he will do it. And he's helped us so much, and I know everybody else too.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Can I say something? So my name is Peg. I've been a Peace member for about 10 years. And I feel like I really have to mention the creativity that abounds in this parish. Every single square that you see here is a creative person that contributes. It starts with Dave, maybe. I mean, here he is, he's preaching, and he's throwing a pot. And it sets a tone of risk-taking and open-mindedness that is very welcoming for creative people of all sorts, whether it be clay or needlework or numbers like Claudia. She says she's not creative, she's very creative. And so it's very welcoming to all you creative souls.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And all the music. Oh my gosh, all the music. And all the pianos that stay tuned. Paul. Thank you. You want to jump in at all? Okay, I've got somebody that showed up here.
Hi, this is Jess Winkler. I live next door to the church. And yeah, I started coming to Christmas Eve. Our family would just walk over just for that service and just fell in love with the feel once we walked in the door and just all the things that all of you all mentioned. So we officially started coming here, and it's not just because it's next door and I can be here because, you know, I'm always last into the service, even though I'm next door. So, but I just love coming, and I always just feel better when I leave. The stories, the joy, the wisdom, the love. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. All right. I think, are we coming to a close? Anybody else? Anybody else before we move along? Thank you so much for doing that with us today. It's important to remember that, you know, we come back for a reason. I keep coming back because you know, partly what Mary said there, you know, the parish is so big. There are so many people that are included in Peace Lutheran Church in Lauderdale. There are so many, and we have about 50 that show up to worship, and but we're all out there worshiping in our own ways too. So it's been just a pleasure to be able to have the community that we live in also be the place where we spend most of our love. So thank you.